So here's a little summary of what we talked about with the seventh chords. Major seventh has the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh found in the major scale. The dominant has the same notes except the seventh is flatted. The minor seventh has flat 3 and flat 7, and half diminished finally has flat 3, flat 5, and flat 7. We never really changed the 1 because if we did, then you wouldn't really have a root, right? You can't really have a chord without some basis for it. So the 1 is usually pretty stable. Okay, so I wanted to take the time here to show a little bit of shorthand for these. So if you wanted to label these, if you had like a C major 7th, you could write C uppercase M and 7 for C major 7. Okay, whatever your letter is here. Maybe actually for today's lesson, let's go ahead and use G to show uppercase and lowercase a lot easier. Okay, for dominant 7, you can get away with just G7. The reason that you can do this is because of all the 7th chords, the dominant 7 is the most common. So it gets, by default, it gets this. It's kind of nice. Okay, the minor 7 is simply lowercase g and a 7 like that. Okay, and then the half diminished looks like this. You take your G, you write a diminished symbol with a slash. This slash makes it half diminished and 7. Okay, so notice that they all have the 7, they all have the root letter, and then they all have the 7th. Now, if you wanted to use Roman numerals, let me go back and use that green color. Roman numerals would look like this. Whatever your Roman numeral is, if it's 1, it would be uppercase, just like this letter. And you could do 1 major 7 like that. Okay. If you wanted to do, I don't know, another number, maybe let's go ahead and use something crazy like 6. If you had a major 6 that was also a major 7th, you could do, I'm sorry, you need the M and then a 7, just like that. Super simple. Whatever your number is, just like if you had another letter, maybe you had like A flat major 7, something like that. Okay. For a dominant 7, I think you can guess where this is going, but for a dominant 7, if you had 1, it would just be 1 7 like this, or 4, or I'm sorry, 6 6 7 like this. Okay, for a minor 7th, you simply write a lowercase letter and a 7 just like this. So you would write lowercase 6 and a 7, and then finally, or let's do that in the right color. That looks incorrect if it's the wrong color, right? So minor 1 7 and then minor 6 7. So this is your minor 7 on 1, minor 7 on 6, and finally you have your G. Half diminished 7th would be like this, lowercase 1, degree symbol with a slash and a 7, and then same thing here. So this is useful for shorthand if you don't want to write G half diminished 7 dim. Even this much is too much to write. G half dim 7 is a lot easier to write this way. And I like to use lowercase letters. Now, if we're splitting hairs here, but if you were to write G with an uppercase and write this symbol, if you write this symbol, it's really weird to say this is major, but usually you ignore the fact that this is uppercase or lowercase. This is just a letter. This is your quality, and then this is whether it's a 7th or not. Okay, so if you do see this, if you see G half diminished 7th written like this, that is okay. Usually I like to do lowercase because minor and diminished are lowercase, major and augmented, and in this case dominant, are uppercase because the triad is major. The triad is major. If you had 1 3 sharp 5, for example, maybe sharp 5 like this, if you had this would also be uppercase. The lowercase starts here where you have the minor and the diminished triads.